Hey, Happy New Year. Welcome into Rob Wright's Gen X Pop Culture. Hey, folks, today we're talking about one of the most brutal episodes of the Pacific, the last part of Peleliu. It's going to be very interesting. We've got a lot to tell you and a lot to talk about coming up right here on Rob Wright's Gen X Pop Culture. And I put in a poll question for you guys to answer. Let me know if you've seen it or if you got it, what your thoughts are, and we'll address polls at the very end of this. So let's get started. Hey, bringing on Heather L. Heather, how are you?
Doing good, Rob. How are you?
Doing great. Hey, just let's give an overview. I mean, wow, how was your New Year's? Was your New Year's good? Did you have a good one?
Yeah, as anyone who hangs out on Doomcock's channel knows, we hung out kind of rung in the New Year, New Year's Eve on kind of like a Friday Night Frolic style show. So yeah, we had a blast doing that. It was good. And yeah, just kind of hung out New Year's Day, watching football, doing, kicking back, relaxing, trying to read some of the, check out all my Christmas gifts. And yeah, it was fun. Good stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah, my New Year's was the same way. It's pretty awesome. We had a good time on Doomcock stream. If you guys ever go on there, so a lot of fun. Glad I didn't have to worry about all the fireworks and all the other stuff that goes on with New Year's. Sometimes that can get hectic around here and probably around where you are too. I mean, a lot of folks celebrating. So
Yeah, a lot of fireworks.
yeah,
But yeah, I don't go out and deal with the crowds. It's like a amateur drunk night, so it's better to stay in on New Year's Eve.
yeah. I've gone out a couple times, but it's always usually pretty close, and I try and get in at a decent hour. We're talking before 1 a.m. Just because, my goodness, you never know. And honestly, there are a lot of people that are out on the roads that on New Year's Eve. The other thing that we had here in the Dallas Fort Worth area is people stopping on the freeway to watch fireworks and not pulling over
Oh,
to.
no.
Yeah, they apparently had a bunch of wrecks in Dallas because people were stopping to watch the fireworks display instead of pulling over the shoulder like you should. They were stopping in the middle of the freeway when
Right.
everybody else is coming behind them, and you force a pile up.
Are people getting dumber? Is it me or are
No, I don't know.
they
I do not know.
wow. You just stop on the freeway and get hit.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
Lord.
crazy. I just was like, "Are you kidding me?" So,
Oh, jeez.
but
Unbelievable.
anyway, yeah, enough about New Year's. Let's talk about this episode and kind of just give an intro and overview on it, man. This episode feels like it's about survival more so than anything else. And I thought it was brutal too.
Yeah, this one was really brutal. Just horrifying conditions and intense battle and God, yeah, just when you thought like they had really done, these like Saving Private Ryan style episodes where they have to like assault the beach and take these islands and you think that's the intense part. Now it's kind of done, but man, this is just more intense in a different kind of way. It was crazy.
Yeah, I mean it was insane. And then 2104 Dogface is also telling us that they did some stuff at Lexington and Concord for lunch, and then did some other stuff. So he's going to give us some when his friend starts to post his videos. We'll link those in our videos as well. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean it's just intense, and a lot of this is from the old breed. Steve or Eugene Sledge's book that he wrote, and a lot of what happened in there is detailed here. And my goodness, we're on the third day of Peleliu. They've already taken the airfield, which is a big part of it, but up in the hills, you have a lot of Japanese soldiers in these bunkers. And, some of what we're going to discuss is some of the combat up there was just brutal. And you had both the Marine divisions there, and also let's not forget about the Army coming in and reinforcing some of the troops, because a lot of good Marines got killed. And I just want to say this before we get started. First off, we're not historians. We're watching this show. We love it. And so if you've got any facts about history that we don't know, feel free to share them in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to know more about what you know. So share your knowledge. We love that. The other thing that we want to say is we're so thankful for all that have served and all are serving in all branches of our armed forces. Certainly appreciate anybody who puts on that uniform for our country. So very important what they did and what they do. I can't thank them enough. And just watching Band of Brothers again and watching these episodes of the Pacific as we learn more about World War II just reinforces my appreciation. I'm sure yours as well, Heather.
Yeah,
For
100%.
man.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's just incredible. So, but yeah, let's get into this and talk about it. Let's read the summary. Heather, do you want to read the summary about this?
Sure. All right, let me pull this here. Okay. All right, here we go with episode 7. Although they now control the airfield, the battle continues on Peleliu, with the Marines trying to dislodge the Japanese from their hillside fortifications. The Japanese are well entrenched and are proving difficult to get at. Sledge continues to do his job well, but is profoundly shaken by the death and destruction all around him. All of the men are affected when one of their officers is killed. Back in the US, John Basilone is still making public appearances and selling war bonds, and doesn't look very happy about it.
Yep. Yeah, there are a couple of scenes that we'll talk about with him, and wow, it's just amazing to try and understand his perspective and what he's having to do. But yeah, they're characters that we're going to follow. Obviously, Sledge and Basilone, Snafu, Captain Hollandale, Private Layden, Chuckler is briefly seen in this. Gunny, and a few others. Was there a character that stood out to you in this episode, Heather?
Well, obviously, Sledge is the big one. John Basilone had a little part. The captain, Haldane, really, God, I wish we would have gotten more on him, kind of like we did on Winners through Band of Brothers, how we saw more of him. We got more of him in this episode, and I really liked it, and I wish we could have gotten more leading up to this. Would have been really good. And of course, Gunny, we kind of see more of him this time, and it's pretty tragic.
Yeah, I mean, just absolutely tragic. And we're going to get into that so much. I mean, it's just, it's crazy just how tragic some of this is. So let's talk a little bit about it. I mean, first of all, the setting, it's already October of 1944. And we're still on Peleliu, and we've got a book here that's, both Heather and I have got the book. It's kind of the compendium from the Pacific that Marty actually recommended about it, and it's what they wrote with it. And I just want to show you kind of an up close picture of where we are. Let me zoom in on myself here real quick, because I've got the picture right up here. So this is kind of the map, and you can see kind of the hills that they're having to march up with to better defend the airfield. And then there's a blown up picture of where we're going here as well. Right there. So, and that's further up, and it shows Hill 140, where the bunkers where we're going to be going and talking about. So that's kind of part of that. Heather, one of the things that we wanted to talk about is also, as we get into this hand-to-hand combat fighting, just reminding what Marty and some of the others had told us about, number one, the Japanese culture, and number two, about POWs. Very interesting stuff. Do you want to remind some of the audience of what they said?
Yeah, just, their culture and their beliefs, they did not believe in surrender. It was just not part of what they were ever gonna do, and so that made this fighting, um, even more difficult because they're gonna fight to the death, and so no one's ever surrendering, they're not taking any prisoners, and so they basically have to kill every single one because they will, fight till the death, even if they're the last man in there, and they, come out and charge. They'll even set off grenades, killing themselves too. And so I think that it just makes it so much more intense and scary and and much more brutal. And just the fact that they're not going to surrender. It's just not part of their makeup and their culture at that time. And we didn't have any agreements with them, right? Like we did with a lot of the European countries on the treatment of prisoners of war. There was like no reciprocal treaty. So there was just no rules governing that. And so it looks, I mean, I've seen a lot of comments, in looking at this video. I've seen a lot of people comment like how brutal it was, like they're executing prisoners. And it's just really, you got to look at it in the context of the time and the culture and what was happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other aspect of it was that um, they didn't recognize Red Cross people as people that you don't shoot. They would
Right?
attack and kill people trying
Yep.
to get people off the battlefield or give them medical attention because they viewed it as, hey, they're an enemy combatant and they're going to fix somebody back up who's going to come back after us.
Yeah, medics, just there's just no quarter given, so, yeah.
Yeah.
But, hey, I wanna say, hey, like, if we got a lot of new people in the chat, wanted to say hi to everyone and welcome, and hope you guys, are liking this and will engage in the discussion.
Yeah. And Lombardi 1969 asked, didn't it end around 1127? Yes. Yeah, and we're in that last part. So they focused 3 episodes of the Pacific, specifically on Peleliu, kind of the landing and the brutality of that, taking the airfield that was brutal, and then going up into the hills and the fortifications. And Easton NAXK 1995 says he visited this past March. Airstrip reopened and named Sledge Runway. That's
Wow.
so cool. Yeah. In my last video last month, I did another live stream where Marty was able to come on and talk about Pearl Harbor as we remember Pearl Harbor. And I asked him a little bit about the Pacific as we were talking about Pearl Harbor. And he said that in his trips to the Pacific, he does one every year. And I'm probably going to go on one, not this year, but next year, because I really want to go to Iwo Jima and Peleliu and a couple of these places that we're talking about. So I can't wait to do that. But I've got to save the funds because they're not cheap trips, not whatsoever. But he said that they are reopening the runways and that airfield, and that we are deploying troops in that area.
Hmm.
Folks, the South Pacific in that area is highly sought after, highly important strategically worldwide. And, I don't know what's going to happen with China or with anything else like that. But the things that we discuss with history and learning from history gives us a perspective of what could happen in that region. Because in some ways, basically, history can repeat itself with somebody claiming all the different islands and claiming different sections for resources and other types of stuff. So that's what the Japanese did when they started, and that's why we had to go island to island and hop different islands so that we could shut down, sub bases, that we could take out airfields so that we could use them as well, because aircraft carriers can get so far, but you also need to have air bases so that you can do bombers on those air bases, because bombers weren't necessarily able to go off of carriers at that point. So that's a lot of stuff that he talked about, and that's part of the reason why we're making sure we're strategic in that area, because that part of the world is kind of a little bit of a mess right now. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's very interesting. That's why I like to study history. That's why I like to understand it, so that I can get perspective on what could happen or what sometimes repeats itself. So Heather, I don't know if you had a comment on that or anything else about that.
No, I think it's interesting, the commentary on what is strategic, what isn't, how they determine to take which islands when, and how much they're needed for logistics and supplies, and just as you're working your way into other, towards Japan. Um, Definitely, I just not something I had thought about before we started watching this show.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. And Angular Spanish says, yeah, visiting Peleliu nowadays must feel surreal. So much history in such a small place. Yeah, and I've heard and read other stuff where you can still find a lot of artifacts, weapons, and stuff, and sometimes some live music munitions. Um, yeah, it's not apparently in some of these places they're still so remote that there are still some very dangerous artifacts that you can find on some of these islands, and wouldn't surprise me. You know, just a trip to Belgium just opened my eyes on that. Finding live
Yeah,
routes.
and that's much more, well traveled than these islands. Like now, a lot of it's gotten overgrown by jungle. Like the jungle,
Mhm.
it doesn't look anymore like it looked the way you're seeing it in these battle scenes, like in the live battle footage in the show. It's like the jungle's like completely retaken it. But yeah, people find still weapons with rounds still inside, and yeah, it's pretty crazy. The tanks are all kind of left there and rusted out, and it seems like a pretty interesting place to visit.
Oh yeah, swords and bayonets I've heard and different things. So kind of crazy. So all right, let's get into this episode, and it really opens up on October 1944. And it kind of opens with Sledge writing in his Bible, and we see kind of an intense flashback, which is just kind of crazy. So it right there, it kind of just hits you and grips you into what this episode's about. Heather, what was your thought when you first saw that first couple minutes?
Well, the footage was amazing because when you watch the opening, right, and you see the historical footage, how amazing they did filming this episode because
Mhm,
they make it look real life. It's like a
mhm.
perfect transition. One of the things that hit me, was Sledge, the way he looks now, and if you remember, I don't know if it's episode 1 or 2, when his dad was not wanting him to go to war, he was talking about seeing the soldiers that he had treated return and just look in their eye, um, because of what they had seen, and Sledge is starting to look that way now after all these experiences that he's had, and that's what kinda struck me is it took me right back to his dad saying that, like, "Wow, that's exactly what's happened to him now."
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the other aspect of it is that even though he's part of the mortar squad, his primary is the mortar and the machine guns, but they had to rotate it with other types of stuff. So at times he would have to do on stretcher duty where he's bringing stretchers back and forth, and we see that. Other times he's helping and assisting with medics. And in some of this footage, you see him helping a medic, and it's kind of disgusting, but it's brutality and reality as a guy's guts spilled out.
Yeah,
That kind of
yeah,
hit me hard because my dad was in the army as a doctor, and knowing what he would have to do in treating some of the wounded guys that came back home at times in the hospital or in the military. Just some of that stuff just was brutal as well. It's interesting, and it hits you right in there. So it right from the front, you realize that this episode's going to be a very intense episode. It's going to be a very impactful episode, and you get a feel for just how Sledge is kind of viewing it through his eyes. And part of this episode, as we get into the brutality, is how does he deal with it? How do soldiers deal with this?
right.
Because it's not just um, following orders and going out and carrying out missions, it's dealing with everything going around them. So very interesting. And one of the things that we mentioned the change from him leaving is, in the first part, where he gets a cigarette and gets a light from some guy, and he's like, "You didn't used to smoke," and it's like, "I do now."
Yeah. I think he started right away when he got there after the first assault on
Mhm.
Peleliu, and yeah, I mean, I at this point, right, I mean, you could die anytime, the conditions are so horrible. I did that's your I can see why they were all smoking, which is, very tough.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Kind of a stimulant to kind of ease your worries or calm
Yeah,
you down a little bit. But
yeah.
and then the funny thing is, I think, did you watch any of his son giving commentary about this episode or previous
Yeah,
episode?
I that's a great, YouTube stream, which we should plug. I think it's on Reel, called Real History,
Mhm.
REL History. And yeah, Sledge's son is on there talking about these episodes, and I did watch it on this one. I thought it's really excellent again, definitely worth the time. I don't remember his exact comment on that, but
Yeah.
it's a
Well,
good
he said his dad picked up cigarette smoking, and then after the war, he kinda
quick
switched, quit cigarette smoking, but he did smoke a pipe. So,
right.
you know, interesting stuff. But the men are marched out off the airfield, and they're given about 11 hours off, and they're actually given some chow, and they're sitting there, and they've got downtime, and you've got some other guys that are coming back and forth. They're not part of their unit. They could have been the CBs. They could have been some other people. We're not given exact information, but they come around asking about souvenirs, and it's kind of interesting. What did you think about that scene?
Well, the guy who comes up is a little bit clueless, like, "Dude, you gotta read the room here, like, these guys have been in, like, horrendous conditions, in intense combat, and you're just coming up from, the rear and asking about, trying to get souvenirs." So, it's like, you gotta read the room a little bit there, but I will say, my grandma's one of my grandma's brothers was a CB, and those guys, were not just kind of in the rear, out of danger. They did have specific, expertise, like in carpentry and electricians and that
Mhm,
kind of stuff, and they also had combat experience, so they
mhm.
were, often under fire and right up there, so yeah, we don't I think they called him a CB in the episode, but we certainly don't wanna give, CBs a bad rap. A lot of those guys were amazing and did a lot of good stuff, but I think there were, some people who weren't on the front. I know, Sledge's son was saying that that did happen, that there were some people who were a little bit clueless and looking to get kinda some war souvenirs, so, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the captain, I think this is, you saw a little bit of him in the last couple episodes, but it was more of, hey, do this or do that. You didn't really get an close feel for him, but you have him kind of talk with Sledge, and they have this interesting conversation. But right before that, he tells them something really interesting about water and downtime. And Heather, do you want to read his quote?
Yeah, I love this. So, never run when you can walk. Never walk when you can stand. Never stand when you can sit. Never sit when you can lay down. Never lay down when you can sleep. And never pass a supply of clean water. So, some great advice, even if you're not in combat. I like that. Thought it was pretty funny.
Oh yeah, I love that. So that the captain tells him that, and he just like plops down right beside Sledge, and I think he's concerned for his men, and I love this because there's kind of a parallel to that we can draw to almost Dick Winters
Yeah.
and how he had concern for his men. So it's pretty interesting. And then they start talking about the Civil War, which is kind of interesting. Our granddads might have shot at each other, which is fascinating because we're sitting here in 1944 and it's 1864. 1861 to 1865, the Civil War, not that far removed from it. But now, when we look at from 1944 to now, it's almost as far back. It's kind of crazy to think about, right?
Yeah, that was totally crazy. And it kind of struck me because I didn't think about it until they brought it up. Like, shoot, our grandparents, World War II was our grandparents' generation, but their grandparents' generation was the Civil War, and it's odd to think about how close that was. Like, they would have been close to people who fought in the Civil War, and so that gives it a much better context when they're talking about, "Oh, you're from the South, or you're from the North," like, it still would have had probably more meaning then than it does now. We don't, we're so far removed from it. So, yeah, that was pretty interesting, and I love the way, he kinda used that to it shows, Captain Haldane, just establishing a rapport with the men and caring about them personally and their backgrounds. So that was a great moment with him, great character moment.
Oh yeah, and then 2104 Dogface says 1938 was the last gathering of Civil War veterans in Gettysburg, and I'm sitting there going, "Wow, that's like 6 years removed from where we were in World War II in this show, in 1944." So,
It
uh,
kinda like how we're now, you know, we've just recently seen the last of these guys from World War II pass away, right?
mhm,
I mean, a lot
yeah,
of them were living, when these were filmed, Band of Brothers in the Pacific, but over this stretch, there's very few of them, so that's an interesting parallel.
yeah, absolutely. Um, and then after they talk, the captain says, "Oh, I've got a mission for you," and Sledge is like at attention. And he's like, "Do you have a watch?" "Yes, sir." And it's like, "Wake me up in 20 minutes."
Yeah,
It's just awesome.
it was good. I liked him a lot. I
Yeah,
liked
I thought that was awesome and really funny. It's just it's kind of funny how Sledge just comes to attention. He's like, "Yeah, I've got one right here. What do you want me to do?" But it goes back to never pass up a time when you can sleep.
That's right.
So, all right. But after this, they're heading back into the war, and I thought it was interesting, although really Chesty Puller, who's highly decorated Marine and a war hero. We briefly see him coming in as his unit's pulling out. They did take rotation shifts back to the airfield and even back onto uh, one of the rest islands. But it's interesting because you see how torn up his unit got as our guys are going back in, and that was just kind of eye opening.
Ugh, man, yeah, you can tell exactly what happened just by how they look, the wounds, how many injured, and just the way they're walking and the look, and yeah, Puller, I mean, he's a badass, he's got a wounded leg, but, I did hear there's some criticism of him as maybe being too aggressive, not concerned with taking casualties. Those were some comments that I saw about him, so kind of a mixed outlook on what he was like and in combat. But yeah, that looked tough. But these are some amazing shots as they're walking back with the airplanes in the background, all the hills in the background or the
Mhm.
coral. It those were some pretty cool shots.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's awesome, and you see the guys handing them cigarettes or whatever as they're going up, and then exchanging kind of supplies. Um, it's kind of intense, and then we do see the air support going in, and I thought that was really cool. The aerial shots. I couldn't get a picture of it, but the aerial shots with the fighters flying overhead. The problem is that you can have all this air support you want, but the Japanese are in these heavily fortified bunkers that are within hills and within the rocks. So even if you did, strafe them or drop bombs, you're not guaranteed to hit or kill as many as you could going up, unfortunately, and having to fight hand to hand.
Yeah, they needed it because they're dug in, right? They dug all these tunnels, interconnecting tunnels underground. So we needed some of the bunker buster bombs that and we didn't have at the time, but yeah, to get like under and get in the tunnels because yeah, I don't know how much good that could do.
Yeah, and then Easton NA K 1995. Puller and other Marine leadership failed to improvise and adapt. Frontal assaults on Peleliu with suicide. Yeah, there were so many that died from some of those, and that's one of the criticisms that he gets. He's still a hero, and I still acknowledge just all the wonderful things that Chesty Puller did for the Marines and and all of us. But yeah, it was a brutal attack. But part of the reason why they were taking Peleliu is just where it's strategic because Peleliu, right on the other side of it, apparently was a Japanese submarine base, and they needed the airfield. And the concern was, if we didn't clear this out, we would be fighting all kinds of battles as they attacked the airfield once we took it over. So that's part of the concern here, too. So,
Yeah.
and you needed.
Well, people were just critical of his tactics and, like,
Mhm.
his lack of concern for a high number of casualties, like, he could have approached it a different way. Obviously, I'm not an expert on military tactics, so I
No,
couldn't say
neither.
myself whether, how accurate those comments are and what if how it could have been done differently. It's not, something that I've seen, but I have read, um sort of two completely different viewpoints on him is that criticism and then, his overall just heroism personally. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And, as we get into this episode and look and see, it's hard to really understand what you could do differently with just given the terrain on here. Because you got to understand also, Peleliu is a lot of rocky terrain, and it's like limestone. It's not exactly the
His coral,
easiest
yeah.
stuff to coral and limestone. It's not the easiest stuff to walk through and march on and sit on and move through. And it's not like you can run in and out of things rather relatively easy, like you're running through forest stuff or even softer jungle type stuff. So
Yeah. And I think too, Chuckler was one of the guys on the stretcher, right? I don't know if you
Mhm.
mentioned that coming back with that.
No, I was
He
about
was
to, but yeah, good.
yeah,
Yeah,
that
Chuckler.
was really sad seeing him there because he was one of my favorites when we were talking about, the first group with Lecky, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And he's one of the ones that stayed that was still there, and they had thought they had lost him, and then he came back, and it just yeah, it was sad to see him on there. It was good to see that he was all right, but my goodness, it was just crazy.
Yeah,
Lombardi 1969, I thought Iwo Jima was worse.
we haven't
Um,
gotten there yet, right?
we haven't gotten there yet, but we're about to. I mean, Iwo Jima's coming up next. Spoiler alert! But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
all these islands were difficult. I mean, uh,
Hell
and
on Earth,
hello,
uh,
FJHC
Easton Mac said
2005.
Hell on
So
Earth, right? It's
yeah,
Hell on Earth is a
yeah.
pretty apt description for all of these.
Oh yeah, all of these were hell on earth. And the other aspect about it also is if you think about it, you're in an island in the South Pacific. And so the sun is beating down on you because you're close to the equator. Granted, it's not like the dead cold or whatever, but it could still be 70 or 80 degrees, but with the humidity, it feels like 110. So it's not like it's not
Yeah,
like it's not, the weather conditions. And one of the things that they said on one of the things that I watched was they would put some stuff on their back so that their neck would be protected from the sun. So you didn't have kind of these things that were draping down their helmets on the back to help prevent them from getting sunburned. So you had the humidity, the heat, the terrain. It's just you guys are right, hell on earth. I mean, I can't imagine what these guys went through, but
yeah.
um, yeah, it's kind of crazy. And then we go back to Basilone, and I'll show a couple pictures here. I'll bring up some of my slides. I don't have as many on here, that's why I didn't show it. But this was the airfield. That Sledge, um, and then here's kind of what I was talking about, where they put some stuff on the back so that it would cover
Right.
their necks. And then here's Basilone on the home front. And John Basilone is still at home selling war bonds. And the Shriners give a speech and bring him up. And I don't know, Heather, what do you think about all this?
Yeah, well, they're doing a good job selling their war bonds. Barcelona doesn't look too happy, and I don't know if the guys giving these gung ho speeches had been to war themselves or not, or if they're just selling it. But yeah, it's just like Barcelona's just kind of like, oh, I'm so sick of this, hearing this crap. So interesting, but I guess money needed to be raised for the war effort, so it was good on that. I'm not too sure about these guys. These
Yeah,
Shriners, I guess, who were doing it.
yeah. 2104 Dogface says the camo helmet cover had flaps they could use to protect the back of their necks. Okay. I didn't know it had flaps on it, but that's cool. Thank you for that clarification. But yeah, Baslo doesn't feel comfortable at all doing this. And
Yeah.
the scene shifts from this. I guess it was at a country club. And so he goes and he hits golf balls. And apparently, as a kid, in his teenage years before the war, he did work on a golf course at one point. So he could hit clubs. And he's at a driving range, which is interesting to see a driving range back in the 1940s compared to driving ranges now. Kind of cool to look at.
And the old-fashioned club.
Yeah, an old wood.
Yeah.
And so he's just hitting these balls, and you start to see the flashback of him with his boys, and it's just a real interesting scene because you're getting into his mindset. And I thought they did a great job with it because he's hitting golf clubs from probably the early evening all the way into the night to where the reporters that are following him put their cars up and they had the headlines so he can see, but he looks down and his fingers are bleeding, because he's hitting so many golf balls, and he keeps going. So thoughts on that, Heather? Or just
Yeah, it was interesting because it seemed like, he could go out and just kind of work out his frustration on the driving range, and then also like I can just focus on this and it'll take my mind off of all this other stuff. But then he starts thinking, having all these flashbacks, and I think it's before people really understood PTSD, and what, that effect that he could have, maybe some guilt in there that these guys are still over there and he's home selling more bonds. So yeah, that was an interesting look that, to kind of give you the impression of how he feels at this point.
Yeah, I was just like guilt, anger, depression, all those emotions wrapped up. And granted, I mean, something physical will help,
Hmm.
alleviate some of that, but my goodness, it just shows, just how much he's really putting into it, and really thinking about all the people that he left behind. So that mindset is interesting. And folks, spoiler alert, as we get into Iwo Jima, you're going to see what happens with Bazelon. So, but then we shift back to Peleliu, and oh my goodness, this was interesting and a little bit confusing at first because they're in their foxholes. And one of the keys, just to give you guys some background here on this scene to really tell you a little bit about it. I wish I had, shots to show you from it, but um, essentially, you were not supposed to leave your foxholes because Japanese soldiers would come out at night, and they would have some night attacks and sneak attacks at night. And so there was a signal that you were supposed to give if you had to leave your foxhole for any reason, so that the men around you would know that you were leaving. And you have this incident where a guy jumps up and he's screaming and shouting, and there's kind of almost a fight, and then guys can't tell and they shoot, and somebody ends up passing away. And hey, the RAV1, how are you? Glad you're here. We see ya. But just interesting. Heather, this scene kind of intense.
Yeah, very. And yeah, that was part of the, the psychological strain is they couldn't sleep because of the Japanese would come out at night and have these night attacks. And um I'm sure, they've been entrenched there for a long time, so they know the terrain better. They're probably sleeping in the caves that they've dug out during the day and can come out at night. And um, God, I don't know. I'd be terrified in there just because you don't know where you're going. It's all this rocky, kind of the mountainous terrain. You can't see at night. And then, the Japanese could be coming out of these entrances anywhere. Like, if that was me, like, I would just be, like, stuck there. I would never get out. I would just be sitting there frozen, like, rooted in my little hole and shooting anyone who came up towards me. I can't even imagine. I mean, it's bad enough, but then at night when you can't see anything and they're out there, I it would just be awful. I think if I had to go to the bathroom, I would just go right there in the hole.
Yeah, many of them probably did. 2104 Dogface gives us some insights. They said they learned early on in the canal, which we've already passed, Guadalcanal, you need passwords. My grandfather had that happen to him, but he knifed the guy to death. And oh my goodness, yeah, we saw that in the Guadalcanal portion. But
Yeah,
this case was a little bit more serious because apparently somebody did get attacked by a Japanese soldier, and
right.
so that's what happened. And the problem is that you can't see at night, and you don't know who you're shooting at. And apparently, the Japanese soldier was killed, but he was also shot.
Yeah.
So, kind of crazy. So in the morning, Gunny kind of lectures them about getting out of the foxholes at night. That's why you don't get out without signaling or using the password.
Mhm.
Um, but I think Snafu had a line about that.
Oh,
He's
I
like,
don't I remember. What
Japanese right up your up your rear. Uh,
yeah. Yeah, Snafu's our comic relief for this show. We don't get much of it in this one like we did Band of Brothers, but he's always a good lighten the mood a little bit.
yeah, and coming up later, we will show pictures of actually what Snafu and Sledge look like because we got it in our book. That's cool. But yeah, it just was like, oh my goodness. And then they're marching on to their next objective, and they get ambushed. And this is just kind of crazy. They're just having a conversation, a normal conversation about the incident from the night before, and one of the guys just gets shot in the leg right on the trail, and it just was kind of scary. You're like, oh my goodness, just all of a sudden, boom.
Well, part of this was, like, I think, they didn't know initially that, they're connected with tunnels, so that
Hmm.
when they clear one bunker, they thought it was cleared,
Hmm.
and then they would go on, they didn't realize they're getting back to that same spot because 'cause they're all interconnected with these underground tunnels that they dug, and so, yeah, they get ambushed there, and you've got Japanese coming out of these holes and bunkers, and y yeah, that would be terrible because at first, I think they're like, "No, I cleared that," and all of a sudden, you're getting ambushed again, so it's a big surprise until you figure out, like, "Oh, crap, they're all, connected and can make their way back underground," so, yeah, that was a tough one too, and it's so exposed, right? They're walking, and it's like, there's not a lot of cover. They just seem
Yeah,
so exposed where they're out, and other while the Japanese are kind of entrenched in these holes.
exactly. And so what happens is they're on the trail, they're going up towards the next objective. They get attacked, and the captain's like, get to the bunkers, get behind the bunkers. And so they thought, the last Marine division that came through cleared all the bunkers out. But it turns out, no, there's still somebody in there. And it's just interesting. They're all quiet behind there, and Sledge hears this noise. And he tells one of his comrades, and he's like, oh, you're just hearing things. And he's like, no, listen. And then Bergen goes to clear it out. And then they peek over, and yikes, a machine gun sticking out.
Yeah, I think Bergen was kinda like, "Dude, you're losing it," and he's like,
Yeah.
"No, no, you listen. Listen."
Yeah.
But, yeah, he looks over and you got this machine gun muzzle pointing right in your face, that would be, like, another shock. I'd be like, "Ah, crap."
Yeah,
Terrible.
and so, I mean, right before it starts going off, it's just crazy. Um,
So they end up
so
putting a grenade in there.
mm,
Um, the Japanese start coming out, right?
mhm. Yeah, they put a live grenade, they find the air pipe, and they put a live grenade down there, and it explodes, and then, Japanese soldiers start coming out, and then one of them has a live grenade,
Right.
and so you're like, "Oh my goodness," and then so they're having to jump away from there, and then
The one poor guy gets hit, like, hit in the
yeah.
face with shrapnel or
Yeah, it's brutal, and
yeah.
and, Sledge is pulling him and another guy to safety, and then all of a sudden, it's great that we get reinforcements, but, Tank's gonna do a lot of damage there, which is great, but you can only get the tanks so far up these hills as well, so, um, So the tank comes and blows up some of the walls, which helps. Um, but then you have the situation where the tank blows some of the walls out, and then another Japanese soldier's coming right at Sledge.
Yeah, and he
And
shoots him right point blank, right? Just
yeah,
face to face because they're just, like, looking right in each other's eyes for a second.
yep. It's just it's insane. I mean, and here's the other thing that we learned watching some of the other shows to help give us a point of reference that Sledge, his son asked him if he'd ever had hand-to-hand combat with anybody like with a bayonet. And you see, for example, if you watch, the Sansa Iwo Jima, the John Wayne movie, where they're practicing how to bayonet fight. Well, apparently the Japanese, because they use sword warfare, and you've got samurai ancestry, so they were very good with knives and bayonets and that kind of stuff hand to hand. And apparently, Sledge told his son, "No, I want nothing to do with the Japanese soldier face to face bayonet charge or anything like that." That's why he carried so many guns to be able to shoot them at further range out, because you didn't want to get close combat with them. So some of this was kind of exaggerating what they did with them, with killing them at such close range, because Sledge never would let a
Right,
Japanese soldier get that close to him.
right.
So it's
You
very interesting to see that and understand that. So
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want them getting close if you can help it at all.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
So, but my understanding is Japanese soldiers, they had bayonets, they had a couple of different types of knives with them. Our soldiers carried knives as well, but they carry a suicide knife. They carry
right.
another type of knife that they would use to attack at close range like that. And that was brutal.
The
Um,
suicide knives were interesting that they all
mhm.
carried those too. I saw that, I
Yes.
was wow, that's pretty wild.
Yeah, it was kind of a ceremonial type
About a
thing.
Talk about a cultural difference though, like, everyone carrying for them all to be carrying suicide knives, like, it's not something that we would do, right?
No,
It's
not at
really,
all.
really interesting.
Yeah, it's very highly interesting. I mean, it's just so interesting about that. And then the other thing that was brutal on here was they brought the flamethrowers up and using the flamethrowers on there, which is uh,
Yep.
very interesting.
Well,
So
they're trying to root them out, right, any
mhm,
way they can, and, I mean, it is brutal, it seems horrific, and at the same time, right, you have to root them out
mhm.
of these caves and these bunkers. You can't keep letting them come out and ambush you and snipe, have sniper attacks and, um, if that's what it takes to root them out, they're not gonna surrender. Um and I think just psychologically, all these guys are like at the breaking point right now, right? Because you've been in these horrible conditions. They're taking shots. Guys just launching suicide attacks at you. I mean, they've got to be just right at the point of going over the edge. So
Yeah.
this was a tough scene too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And Sigvaldus and Ass wasn't surrendered dishonorable based on Bushido
Yeah.
code. Yes, it was, and we talked about that at the very beginning about that. That's why we brought it up at the very beginning, because you got to understand that the mindset of the Japanese soldiers, that they were not going to surrender, and they were going to fight you to the death. SB4H. It's always a good time for barbecue.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And 2104 Dogface mentions that the Japanese would practice bayoneting on prisoners. That wouldn't surprise me, given the fact that there was no code or any treatment
Right.
for prisoners. So,
And they had no respect for the soldiers who would surrender
mhm.
because they thought that that was dishonorable, so, I mean, to them, that was perfectly fine.
Also, if you're thinking about this, that the guys with the flamethrowers, first off, you bring those guys kind of at the end, because if one of those guys get hit, it could take out several other troopers.
Ugh,
And
yeah, yeah,
that, I think, I'm not sure about this, but if anybody knows anything about flamethrowers in World War II, I know they've gotten a lot more sophisticated as time has gone by. But with the flamethrower back then, there's only so much fuel that they had to be able to use. So I don't think you could use a flamethrower on every little thing. Besides, if
Right.
you started a fire on here, I don't know how much it would burn because the terrain really didn't have a lot of. You're not a lot of trees. You're a lot of rocks that are not
Yeah,
gonna
I'm
burn as
sure
well.
strategically, right, if you thought you're gonna get results from it, you're not gonna use it on, little one-off type situations, but
Hmm.
it looked like they're trying to root out a big group of people there, so, yeah.
Yeah. So, and even then, they after this, they kind of they even ponder it in the show, which is great. Um, why didn't they surrender? And they didn't.
Mm.
Um, 21 before Dogface says he's only played with a flamethrower. They start at 30,000 for a flamethrower. I don't know that I would ever want to own one, but it'd be kind of cool to look at it one in like a museum or something like that. Um,
Hmm. Yeah.
yeah. So you got more of this as we go up the mountain, and you've got this period of just kind of rest for a minute. And Snafu, he finds a Japanese flag. I thought that was kind of cool.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it was kind of funny. But then you have this one scene which is just awful, where one of the guys, and we saw it at the beginning, is that they're trying to take their teeth, like gold souvenirs from their teeth.
Right.
And one guy's trying to do that, and Sledge is like, put him out of his misery. And apparently, in real life, this did happen, and Sledge wasn't the only one that said put him out of his misery, and
'Cause
Snafu
he's still
does.
alive, right? He's still alive when they're trying to take his teeth,
Yeah,
screaming, and yeah, that was terrible.
yeah,
I
that
mean,
was
I can
awful.
see, like, the gold is worth a lot, but, it's not like a random souvenir, but it's still pretty disgusting.
Oh yeah, it's sick.
Yeah,
It's disgusting.
to have become so callous that you're tearing out someone's teeth while they're still alive is really kinda shows you where they're at mentally right now.
Yeah, the brutality. I mean, it's they're thinking, why am I doing this? And then, what am I going to get out of it? And that's part of it, unfortunately. And it just was brutal. And even having to go and shoot him in the head, that was just disgusting too. But we get even more disgusting as we go on. Just wait, guys. This is the most brutal episode so far. But they get their foxholes, and guess what you get when you're in that part of the world? Rain, rain, rain.
Mm, yeah, rain and then dysentery.
Yeah. I guess the only thing with the rain that you could get is that, rain would be a little bit of fresh water that you could collect.
Right.
But when everything's wet, you have to deal with that too.
Miserable, yeah. It's really miserable.
So but it's interesting. We have the captain coming back in, and the captain's got some coffee, and he gives it to Sledge, and you show the relationship that he has with Sledge, but it was interesting um, that he gives him the coffee, and then I love the pep talk he gives him. Lombardi 1969, real quick, says, didn't many Marines take any Japanese swords and as trophies home? Oh yeah, they did.
Mm,
Apparently, Sledge's son says he had one of the suicide swords on his desk that he took home. So, and
yeah,
2104 Dogface says, Japanese swords bring big money. Almost brought an NCO sword in rush ship for $800. So,
well, there's
wow.
some nice Japanese swords. I'd rather have one of those than some teeth. Like, if I was gonna
Oh
take
yeah, me
anything,
too.
I'd be taking the sword. So some
Yep.
of those are pretty cool. Not the short bayonet ones, but the longer swords are pretty nice.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And if you get one in good condition, they're probably worth a lot of money. But
Yeah.
um, you know, um, 2104 Dogface says, Buddy bought one for 1,300. Oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah.
So, but the captain gives Sledge some good advice. Heather, do you remember what the captain said? Did you like this scene?
Yeah, where he's just kinda telling him, like, you can't dwell on it, you just gotta keep moving forward, basically.
Hmm. Yeah, the wounded soldier where he had to take out the Japanese.
Right.
soldier coming up, almost face to face combat, and you can't dwell on it, can't dwell on what happened.
Yeah.
Which is good advice that Sledge is able to pass on later on too.
Mhm.
So it's very interesting. All right, so we're getting further up the hill, and this is we're getting into some of the breaking points here. They're going up the hill, and another member of their unit, another one of their leaders, Hillbilly, is further up the hill, and his squad is under heavy fire. And basically, the captain's saying, "Hey, I'm going to need stretcher units and some other units." And because the mortar guys weren't the infantry men, a lot of them were assigned to stretcher duty. So, Sledge and Snafu are the ones that are having to carry a stretcher. And so they find Hillbilly, but they're needing a stretcher. And so he's bring up the stretchers. And so you got all these guys, like 6 or 7 of them, going up there with stretchers on their backs, and then, putting guys on the stretcher and carrying them back behind the lines. Very interesting stuff, but very brutal.
Well, and this was part of the tactics that I didn't understand. Like, it didn't seem like a good decision to send the stretchers at that point because
Mhm.
they're under too heavy a fire, from guys that are back. Like, I know there's wounded there, but you can't get to them, and all it does is end up getting all the guys carrying the stretchers get shot. The wounded that they're carrying on the stretchers gets shot, and Hillbilly gets killed. Why not send more to, with grenades or whatever it is, mortars to try to get them out, get some of them at least. Like, you can't run up a hill totally exposed carrying stretchers while people, are shooting at you. That just didn't make any sense to me why they did that at that point. Like, you got to get it, you got to advance and take them out first.
Mhm.
Like, and have the wounded, they just have to wait there because you ended up getting more men killed even than what you would have. I mean, that thing just seemed insane to me.
Oh yeah, it was brutal, and I agree. I mean, they're going up, and you're seeing guys with stretchers getting hit and killed before they can even get to the wounded men. And I'm just sitting there going, "Oh my goodness, what are they doing? Why not clear that out?" I was thinking the
Right.
exact same thing. Sledge even gets pinned down, and then it's basically, "Hey, hold off," and then, "Okay, we got you clear. You can move through here." And they get to Hillbilly, and Hillbilly's wounded, and there's already a medic that's there that's kind of treating him a little bit and saying, "Okay, get him on the stretcher." And they're starting to go back down the hill with the stretcher. Well, the other aspect of this is that terrain is god awful, so you could lose your
Steve,
footing real
yeah,
steep and just difficult
uneven,
even with the
yeah.
stretcher. Yeah. And so I'm surprised at how you could even keep a guy up, much less not fall down yourself,
And
trying to bring a guy back down.
you can't move
No.
quickly. So you're like sitting ducks carrying them for
Mhm.
guys that are there shooting at you. That I was just like, "Oh my god, can we just wait until we could, like, take that area?" It's,
Yeah, and they're almost to the point where they can reach safety, and then Hillbilly gets hit, and you're just like, all that for nothing, and we lost a good guy that we got to know a little bit in a couple episodes ago.
yeah, that was heartbreaking when he was shot on the stretcher. I was just like, "Ugh," that at
Yeah,
that
yeah, because he was a good leader, in previous episodes, telling them what to do and stuff like that. And then the thing that happened with Gunny, I was just like, "What's going on with Gunny? Why is he removing his helmet?" And he's removing his helmet, and he's like, it's like he's in a daze. He's got total shell shock.
yeah, he looks just broken there from what like he
Yeah.
just broke at that point. And he's the old breed, right? That's referenced in Sledge's book.
Mhm, mhm.
One of the older generation, and yeah, that it was just that'll tell you how bad it was when someone like that, someone just tough as they come, and he's just at the breaking point.
Yeah, it's just insane. I just was like, "Oh my goodness, this guy is the tough, the guy that kinda holds them together." He's the drill sergeant that is the rough and ready, that always, has them doing, things according to the book, and here he's breaking all the rules because he's lost it. you know. It just that really hit me too. Um, so it's interesting, and we see Hillbilly right here on the stretcher, and unfortunately dying. It breaks you. Um, so they are able to regroup and get in for the night, and the night attack. Um, and you see Sledge with a couple of the other guys, and this is where Sledge uses the captain's advice. And he's talking to Peleliu, and says, "Hey, you can't dwell on it." And Peleliu's like, "Hey, I know if I go back on that hill tomorrow, I'm gonna die." And it's just interesting how the fear is starting to creep in.
Well, and I thought it
It's
was heartbreaking when he was like, I don't even care anymore. Like, I just hope it's
yeah,
quick, you know?
yeah,
It's
yeah. Oh
it's
yeah,
like torture, they're just ready to just be done.
yeah. And they hear a loud noise a little bit in the distance, and it's the Japanese attacking at night, and apparently another group of Marines is handling it, and they're okay further back behind the lines. But Peleliu breaks down after saying all that to Sledge, and Sledge is trying to comfort him, as Sledge is trying to hold it together himself
Right.
with this. I mean, it's just, and we're seeing this further, the brutality of it. We're seeing how it affects each soldier emotionally, and we're seeing the further breakdown of all these guys. And it's just you talk about hell on earth. We're talking about hell on earth mentally, physically, emotionally, every which way.
Mhm.
It's just crazy. And I thought that was an interesting scene. And then we get this kind of comic relief scene the next morning where one of the guys has dysentery and really has to go to the bathroom, and he picks the wrong cave to go to the bathroom in. Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
this poor SOB. Oh my god, I felt bad for him. Oh god, it does lead to some funny moments with Snafu being like, "Oh, you look like you're in a sack race." But, like, jeez, I would like I said, I would just go right there, and apparently a lot of people did because it was just kinda nasty everywhere, but I wouldn't be wandering off into some strange cave, with just knowing how they're so entrenched in there. No, no thanks.
Yeah.
It's bad.
I mean, yeah,
It's
it's funny. He gets chased by a Japanese soldier, and shoot him, shoot him, shoot him, shoot him, shoot him.
they're all just standing there like but I don't know, like, you didn't wanna shoot because they're right, like, next to each other, right?
Yeah,
I'm sure they were probably, didn't wanna hit him either, so
yeah. I mean,
jeez.
it's just as crazy. And apparently this really did happen.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, and Snappy's like, "You look like you won a sack race." And the captain's like, "Okay, go behind lines and get a change of uniform."
Right.
But it's crazy. I just it was good comic relief to break the tension because we're about to get into some more intense fighting, and it just showed that the conditions were a lot worse than you might think. And like we mentioned with the tunnels, you don't know where those tunnels are going to lead or what led to them. So
Mhm.
um, be careful where you step.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so they're going back up the hill. I think I got well, no, don't have any more on that, but they're going back up the hill. And Captain Headline and the NCOs move up, and they're going to get a closer look at uh, the objective. The mortar groups with Sledge and Snafu are told to hold up. Um, and they bring up some of the infantrymen, and everybody's they're kind of like in a kind of a gully type thing as they're going up, and the captain gets hit, and you hear shots fired, and a corpsman's called, and apparently a sniper got the skipper. And this part was really hard to take. It doesn't show the skipper getting hit, but you hear it, and you see eventually the stretcher coming down, and it's heart gut wrenching. I thought that was a very emotional scene.
It's another heartbreaking scene, and I do love how all the men stand Some salute, just kind of showing that respect. But it was just heartbreaking, and this was a great leader, and I wish we would have seen more of him in this show. Really, it kind of focused on him more now. I really think, as I've kind of been like a broken record, but in Band of Brothers, we get to know the main characters a little better, and I don't know if maybe they just included too many in here. And maybe, like, instead of focusing so much on Lecky, like, with the girl in Australia and that whole episode, I would have preferred if we would have spent more time, like, getting to know some of these guys, because we get a little bit, but just not enough. I mean, I feel like he's a similar to Captain Winters, was a great leader who the men loved, and wish we could have gotten a little bit more about him before this moment. But yeah, super, super tragic, sad moment, and definitely one that hits you. Where you can see it. It's really well acted too, because you can really see how it affects all of them.
Oh, absolutely. And you've got guys that are saluting him, taking off their helmets, standing at attention, putting blankets on him. When he gets over to Sledge is having a hard time with it clearly, and they put the blanket over his face, and you could see where he was shot. And it's just a sad scene, just incredibly moving and just hard to take. But the problem is that they still have an objective to take, and unfortunately, it's the next man up. And
Yeah,
so they're told, "Hey, grab your gear when I keep moving."
yeah,
So it's just you got this, and you can't dwell on it. And so it's more of this: everything's being stripped away. And in some ways, it's almost like you're being stripped away of your humanity in these little brief scenes. Every little inch of your humanity is being stripped away because of just all the difficulty with doing this here. And this, really, it makes you feel a little bit more for these soldiers and
mhm,
what they did, but also it really gives you perspective on just how brutal war really is,
right.
and how it's so difficult. And FKHC 2005 says something that we're going to see this in a minute, is that uh, who wanted to have a Japanese skull kept. I know if I would have crossed one now, we'd give it back to the Japanese. Um, Yeah, that's just weird. And he sent me there's this picture, and I'll show you guys. I don't have all the stuff on my computer, but I've got it on my phone, and I'll show you the picture that he sent me. Kind of brutal there.
Mm, mhm.
Yeah. So brutal with that skull, danger movies, where they put that skull up. So it was just really one of those things where it's just like, oh my goodness. And then we've got some more on Captain Huldon. Was revered by his men and his alma mater, Baldwin College, who honors his sacrifice, naming an annual award for his senior leadership after him. That's cool.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
really cool.
glad to hear that. And FKHC 2005 said that's from the skull that I showed was on Peleliu, which is interesting.
Mhm.
Um, So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that it's crazy. But they go further up the hill. They're past some slain Japanese soldiers, and they get a chance to rest. And they're resting right next to slain Japanese soldiers. And Snafu climbs up out of the bunker, and it's kind of disgusting what he's doing. It
Yeah,
kind of grossed me out.
like, the top of the guy's head was, like, blown off or something, and the rainwater had kinda collected there, and blood or something is pooled,
Yeah,
and he's just, like, throwing rocks the way you would in a pond. And
yeah.
yeah, it's like he's gotten completely desensitized, with just the violence and the dead bodies and all the horrific things happening. I feel like when you're at the point where you can just do something like that, you've gone numb. It just it is really, really creepy.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that was disgusting and creepy. But then Sledge starts to break, and he's going to go after this dead Japanese soldier's teeth. And
Mhm.
Snafu kind of talks some sense into him. And I thought that was an interesting scene. What did you think of that scene, Heather?
Yeah, I think it is interesting because he's like probably not, he's one of the last people you would think, like, he was always more kind, more sensitive. He's not like he wasn't rough around the edges like some of the other characters we've seen, and um I think it's kind of like Snafu looking out for him in his own little way, like, you don't want to do this, you don't want to go over the edge, lose your humanity, just so it felt like he was saying the thing about germs, and it is mouths are germy, but that kind of just felt more like, hey, you don't want to do that, just change your mind and kind of save yourself.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And the other aspect of it was that he kind of comes to his senses and he just takes the lapel
Hmm.
off the soldiers, which is something they would collect, which
Right.
is just
In
a
the
little bit more tame to take their
Yeah,
their rank and insignia off
insignias.
on that. And apparently it was not Snafu that really did this in real life with Sledge, but I guess it was a medic
Mhm.
that told him that. But it's real interesting how even Sledge was got to that point where he would, you know, was almost ready to take souvenirs or to do some brutal stuff, which kind of parallels him getting mad at the other guy for holding the dying Japanese soldier that was still alive and trying to take his teeth. You know, it's interesting a parallel with that. So anyway, so they go through this and then they're removed from it. They're going back to the airfield and they're getting on the boat. And Gunny's there next to Sledge. And I thought there was an interesting um, scene here. Gunny gives Sledge his lighter. And it's kind of a rite of
Right.
passage, you know?
Yeah, and it's got like a Marine insignia on there or something, I
Uh-huh.
think, on the outside. Yeah, kind of a passing of the torch, and um, yeah, I think Gunny he had um, been noted as saying somewhere that that was, some of the worst fighting that he'd ever seen, even with his long time in the Marines, and I think maybe a little bit just a passing of the torch and respect, or it was good, it was a nice scene.
Yeah. And it was interesting. Um, with that scene. It was kind of a passing of the torch, and really, just it showed that now Sledge is old breed
Mhm.
after going through all that, and it's kind of like you're in a fraternity and you earn your stripes. You finally become a member rather than a pledge, which is cool. And then they're heading back to Pavuvu, and it's interesting what they see. So
Got like a little greeting committee there, right, with the nurse,
yeah.
looking nice, handing him juice, and, people who haven't been fighting, everyone's looking all cleaned up, and, um, yeah, that was different, right, because, like, it was kinda, you see just Sledge looking shell-shocked at it, when he gets there, and I think, just after what they've been through, it's like, "Oh my god," it's like a normal life seems so weird after just being surrounded by this complete brutality. That must have been a weird, almost like, Twilight Zone to get back to, like, something that anyone else, would take for granted that hadn't just been through that, and, um man, when the guy is kinda, like, dissing him, like, "Hey, move along," because he thinks he's just, like, kinda ogling the nurse, he just gives him this look that would, like, melt stone, like, "Dude, don't even tell me anything, you haven't been through what we've been through." Um, that was pretty interesting, just seeing his response to that.
Yeah. Oh, it was kind of crazy. Seeing that, and he was like, "No, we're getting juice. We're just it's like it's a reaction to civilization."
Yeah,
Um, and
yep,
it's kind of an interesting thing because we saw humanity being stripped away as they're going through all this stuff, and they're coming back to civilization, and this slight thing of humanity is now reintroduced to them, and
boring.
they're
Yeah,
still
it's
kind of
like foreign.
shocked with it, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, it's so foreign after what they've been through, just a
Yeah,
common, common life.
yeah, yeah. You're getting like grapefruit juice or something like that.
It's
So, but anyway, then it ends with basically the guys getting some downtime on the beach and going for a swim, which probably a little bit more exciting for you than it was for me, Heather.
Yeah, I thought that was a good scene, good scenery. The shots were set up perfectly right there. It's very, very nice. Great cinematography, I'd have to
Yeah,
say.
yeah. Bunch of guys' butts. Yeah, not my kind of thing. But apparently with that, what happened was a lot of their uniforms, they would burn their uniforms because
Yeah,
of dysentery and all this other stuff, and they were getting new uniforms. And so, really to clean off and to just get it
yeah,
out, they would do that. And apparently Sledge kept like a flak jacket or something like that because he felt like it brought him luck. But
interesting. Yeah, interesting. And
but
it too, that was where he was with Sid Phillips, right? And
yes.
a few episodes ago where we see Sid just completely dehumanized and Sledge kinda shocked at, his brutality. I think it was toward the crab or some other creature, and Um, it was interesting to bring it back to that, right? As they had been sitting on the beach and it can him like pre going through this experience and now how much he's changed. It was a good way to kind of to tie that together. I thought was interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Rave one basically said, hit thumbs up. Yes,
Yes,
please
hit
hit a
that.
like, subscribe if you haven't. Also share the stream out if you haven't, because this will go into the archives and people can watch it on the replay as well. But we want to kind of end with this and show you a couple pictures. Heather, I don't know if you've got your book handy. Do you want to show the picture like on page like 110? It's the last picture page on the first set of pictures that has a picture of Snafu and Sledge.
Let me see. I think I got it. Yeah. Yep. This one.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Am I lined up?
Yeah, you're lined up. The upper right shows Sledge,
Yep.
and then if you pull back and pull back just a little bit, and then hold up a little bit because Snafu's on the bottom left, right there where her finger is. That's what Snafu looks like. So kind of cool to see.
Yeah,
What
good to see him in real life.
Yeah, I get to see him in real life, and I thought they did a pretty decent job of acting. I mean, Rami Malek is really really good. And here's to kind of wrap it up. So the book that we've got that's a companion of this has some interesting notes on this. We don't see this in the episode, but on October 20th, a brief ceremony took place at the U.S. Armed Forces Cemetery, Peleliu Number One. 1,058 men from all service branches had been laid to rest about 50 yards inland from Orange Beach 2. Captain Haldane was buried just about exactly where he had led King Company ashore on D-Day. If he attended, Gene would have dwelt once again on Prelude, the King Kipling poem that had been festering inside him for 4 weeks. So I'll read the Kipling poem. So that's a poem that one of his men had thought of that felt right for them. It says, "I've eaten your bread and salts. I've drunk your water and wine. The deaths ye died, I have washed beside, and the lives ye led were mine. Was there aught that I did not share in vigil or toil or ease? One joy or woe that I did not know, dear heart across the seas? I've written the tale of our life for a sheltered people's mirth in jesting guise, but ye are wise, and you know what the jest is worth." Kind of interesting, kind of fascinating. And it said the enemy dead numbered approximately 10,685. The corpses not sealed inside their caves were dumped into mass graves at convenient locations by working parties of service units. So that's the brutality and that's the detail. And it's interesting to hear about that. When I was over in Europe, I got to learn about some of the grave detail and some of the things that they did at some of the cemeteries.
Mm,
It's kind of fascinating and kind of interesting stuff. But we've got a couple of slides. Okinawa is one that's coming up next. We don't get to see Okinawa, I think, in this series because we're going straight to Iwo Jima. But that's some real footage from Marines there. This is real combat on the front lines. And this is Peleliu. So these are actual photos from Peleliu for the Marines.
yeah.
Kind of fascinating, and you kind of can see how rough the terrain is right here with just a machine gun nest and stuff.
Yeah. That second one too, like how exposed they are just with the
Yeah,
rocks.
yeah. So it's like you had jungle, airfield, rock, crazy stuff. And then these are some of the bunkers, and that's a more modern picture. And then, uh,
Right.
you know, it's just crazy how they, you see the men right by the bunker right there,
Yeah.
right at the entrance. I can't imagine what that was like. It was crazy. Um,
Wow.
and then the next slide was just getting the wounded off, and we see wounded on the stretcher. And they would get them all the way back to the smaller boats to get them out and to the ships where you had more medical personnel, and eventually down to an island. So, 21 for Dogface says Kipling had lost his son to World War One and did a poem. Uh, there was a movie about it. A young Harry Potter played his son. Oh, okay. So
Mm.
Daniel Radcliffe. Seeing him with a mustache holding a Webley pistol instead of a wand was weird. Yeah, I can imagine that.
Yeah, I think it, Easton Knack or Easton Knacksky, I can't 1995. Sorry, I don't know how to say your name, butchering it there, but, he says Peleliu was 73 days of brutal siege warfare, and to think the US Marine Corps General, Rupert has said it would be rough but fast. That is one of the things that I, am hearing a lot on this is the really the underestimation of how long this would take. They did think it would be much faster, and if they knew how brutal it would be, they may have skipped it. Right, and then, like, also says here is his great uncle served, with the Army 81st and only made it 4 days before he was killed in action. Sorry to hear that, and thank you to your great uncle for his service and, um, giving to his country like that. But, yeah, eh, that is, really brutal stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And it just shows just how brutal and how difficult it was back then. And just, we see just the men coming out of that. And I can't imagine, um, how this affected them. I mean, it's crazy. But as we go on, here's more real combat from Peleliu. I know these pictures are a little bit hard to see. Hang on here. I'll see if I can blow them up a little bit more. I don't know if that helps,
Mm,
but I know it helps on our screen, but I don't know if it helps on the chat. But I mean, if you kind of look real close, you can see just the marching up the hill right here. There's an actual Japanese soldier in this second one. I'm going from left to right, starting the upper right. There's the men on the rocks. They're actually the fourth one, the middle picture of the top ones is actually a basically one of the cannons that they're able to do that. Another picture is over by a bunker, and then another going up the hill. You got the view from one of the boats, a mortar group. Um, this is from the air. Wounded soldiers and walking back and forth and then a nest. I mean, it was so brutal.
yeah.
It was crazy. I just, it's one of those things where you just like you're sitting there going, oh my goodness. just how brutal and how devastating this was. And then I had some poll questions. I put this first one in there. I didn't get a chance to put all of them in there, but we said it's episode 7, the most intense of the Pacific, and overwhelmingly people said still undecided. There were a couple that said nothing comes close.
I was
So,
just basing it my response on what I've seen so far.
mhm.
So I guess we'll have to decide again once we see.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, absolutely.
right. Yeah, I think this was worse than 5 or 6, which is that was really kind of like the 5 and 6 were like the Saving Private Ryan style, like beach assault, and it's really dramatic. But this was so intense with the, going bunker to bunker, and have just the way the terrain and all the just the way they're coming out. God, this was so much more brutal to me than that, even that, and that was no, that was really brutal too. That was incredible.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I agree with you 100%, Heather. I would have voted yes. Nothing comes close. I don't think it was one of, I think so far it's one of the most brutal episodes. It was very difficult. I mean, very intense. And then Lombardi in 1969, do they still find any remains of dead Japanese soldiers on Peleliu? Yes. Apparently they do. And I've seen some stuff and I've talked to Marty about this, and that he's taken some tours out there where, they find, remains, but they also find live ammunition and swords and all kinds of stuff. So,
Right.
yeah. I'll just go through these questions and we can answer them. And if anybody in the chat wants to answer them,
Can you toss
go
the
ahead.
polls back into the chat yet, or is it too late? Can you still post?
I can if we want. I'll type it in as if you want to read it out. Go ahead. This one.
Um, let's see here. Oh, did Eugene Sledge permanently change in episode 7? Options were yes, this broke something in him. He was already changed. The real change comes later, or not sure. Um, I would just say no, really, to that, because just based on what I've heard of his later life, and what his sons have said about his disposition, that he tried to, live life to the fullest, still enjoy his life, and not let this sort of kind of change. I think he's changed there for sure, temporarily, but after he gets back, I think he was able to kind of, I don't know how he was able to come to terms with it or digest it, deal with it. Obviously, we don't know his inner thoughts, but just based on the kind of person he was afterwards, I don't think it changed him in later life, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So don't limit me do one poll at a time, but I would agree with that. I don't think it broke him. I think the other fact that they allude to, but I don't, because he writes and writes notes in his Bible, but I and they don't really explore this aspect of his character, which I think is something that's missing from the series, as you had previously mentioned, where we got to know the characters of Band of Brothers a little bit better before, as they were going to war, and in their personal stories. I don't think we got enough of Sledge. We certainly see what happens with his parents, but we don't see any other aspect of him. And I think his faith is very predominant in his life. And
Mhm.
he's not just writing stuff down in his Bible. He's probably reading scripture and reminding him of scripture. And he's got a deeper faith. And I think his faith played a bigger part than what they're leading on. Of course, this is Hollywood. They don't like to delve into a person's faith, but you had more of that with Band of Brothers, with Winters and his faith, and some of those aspects. And you didn't really see it as much, other than showing the Bible, which is very important. And the actual Bible, his son still had and donated to the Smithsonian. So
Right.
I don't know when he did that. So, but yeah, I put this one in there, folks. So, yeah, I mean, I think his son kind of described this to answer this question in some ways. he later became a scientist, where he's analytical, and so I think maybe the real change in his life comes later. I don't think this fully broke him, but he got to the breaking point. You know,
Oh, for sure here. Yeah.
so we'll just go through these, and if you guys want to put something in the chat, you can answer this poll. I put the poll up, but it didn't let me put any other polls up. I don't
Mm,
know if you want to try and put in this next one. So this one's about John Baslone. And this episode feels trapped and haunted, angry and frustrated, lost without the war, all of the above. What do you think, Heather?
I think all of the above. Right? I mean, he's kinda trapped in what he's doing, definitely frustrated by being there and probably feeling guilt, that he's not with his guys, that he's back home, and yeah, he's as bad as those conditions are, I think, not so much lost without the war, but lost without his guys.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's probably all above. I would definitely say the first two for sure. Um, I don't know if he's lost without the war, but then again, it's what he's so focused on. I
Right.
don't know that he could focus on anything else. So if they said, "Well, you're a Medal of Honor winner and you got to go back to civilian life," I don't know if he could have done that.
Mm-mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that one's an easier one, and there'll be more about Bazelon coming up. And then, which moment do you think hits you the hardest? This one's kind of cool. The bunker with the flamethrower, Hillbilly's death, Gunny breaking down, or the night attacks with the foxholes and what happened there. They're all brutal, but what do you think?
For me, it was Hillbilly's death on the stretcher that just kinda broke me down. I mean, yeah, the bunker and the flamethrower stuff is brutal, but we've seen kinda brutal scenes before. It just Hillbilly, we knew him and you see him so up close, and that just seems so unnecessary that they attempted to do that at that point in time. Like, I know he's badly wounded, but you gotta just hunker down. I mean, bringing him out exposed and then seeing him just take more shots to the chest and die just was like, ugh. It was so deflating at that moment. It was frustrating too. And that one just kinda broke me.
Yeah. The bunker scene was really interesting and cool, but I took that more as a part of war. It didn't really hit me hard. It just was like, wow, oh my gosh, this is intense. But
Yeah.
but I agree, Hillbilly and Death on a Stretcher, because you had some hope because you saw the medic and he's like, oh, he's gonna be okay. And then you see him carrying him down, and you're thinking, okay, well, this is two of our main characters with Snafu and Sledge, and we kind of know that they live. So your thoughts are, well, maybe they're gonna get him out of there, and then he gets hit. So I think that was probably the
Yeah.
most intense. Probably if I had to give a number two, Gunny breaking down also kind of
Right.
kind of hurt me a little bit because he was kind of, you know, he was, hey, that's why you stay in your foxholes, always teaching them the right way to be a Marine. This guy was the biggest gun ho guy and that kind of the one that kind of kept everybody together, and just him breaking down to remove his helmet was just brutal. And this is even before the captain had died.
Mhm. The captain's death was very sad too.
Oh, that hit me harder than any of these choices, I think, because he was a character that I was like, wow, I really like this guy. They need to show more of him.
Mhm.
I like Sledgehammer, but man, this guy's great.
Yeah.
Um, so interesting. And then one more poll question that we've got here. Uh what does episode 7 show best? Physical brutality of war, mental and emotional collapse, moral gray areas, all of it.
Yeah, I think all of it, right?
Oh,
I mean, they do really a good job showing the physical brutality in this series. And yeah, I think definitely showing the mental and emotional collapse, which isn't something that we've always seen in a lot of war movies or series. Really showing the impact. So, 100%. And obviously, the moral gray areas, you just can't. you know, apply a normal scenario to this.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. I mean, because we saw the brutality, we saw it take its toll on them. We saw the mental and emotional collapse of soldiers, and then the moral gray areas, which even Sledge almost crossed with taking the guy's teeth. So yeah, definitely all of it. It was interesting. And then so looking at the poll that I was able to put in, let's end poll on that one. Did Eugene Sledge permanently change in episode 7? I think everybody agrees with you, Heather. The real
Yeah,
change comes later.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, interesting stuff, folks. So, that's it for Peleliu. On to getting into Iwo Jima. And I think the next 2 or 3 episodes are going to deal with Iwo Jima, and we could get some more intense stuff coming up. So,
I
stick
expect
with it.
well. Yeah, good stuff.
So, all right, Heather, I know you're not a YouTuber, but do you want to plug anything?
Yeah, I would say, kind of like I did earlier, check out Real History, that YouTube channel, if you haven't checked it out yet. I know we've been referencing Sledge's son a lot. He's on that stream where they talk about this show, and it's a really good channel, so go give that a listen. Um, if you are looking for me, you can find me sometimes or most of the time on the panel and all the time in the chat on Overlord DVD's channel, usually on Pop Culture Breakdown on Wednesday nights, and also hanging out in the chat, wrenching on Friday Night Frolics, which is a great variety show. So if you're so inclined, come check that out.
Yeah, it's Doomcock's channel, Overlord DVD, and he's great with pop culture and stuff like that. And he's a wonderful entertainer. Friday Night Frolics is so much fun because it's a chance to unwind after a long week, and we have so much fun in the chat. So join us there. I'm also in there too. So hey guys, tomorrow I've got a video dropping at about 10 a.m. Central Time. MTV recently went off the air. So 1981 to 2025, what a ride. So I put together a video about MTV, talking about the start of MTV, the highlights from the 80s and 90s, and then what happened to it in 2000s. I also discuss some of the interesting scandals that rocked MTV at the time, some of the banned videos that were banned during the time, and then I talk about the top 20 videos. So if you're on YouTube tomorrow or whenever, it'll appear tomorrow at 10 a.m., but it'll be up so you can watch the replay. Also, folks, leave a like, subscribe, and leave some comments, and feel free to share the stream out. It'll be streaming. It'll go to a video format so you can rewatch it, and it's going to link to all the other Pacific episodes that we've done. So if you get a chance to watch that. Next week, we're going to try to do a historical Western. Heather and I are going to decide what Western we want to watch and give you that. So join us next week about the same time on 5:30 on Sunday. And then, of course, coming up in 2 weeks, we're going to do the hits of 1977. I'm looking forward to that. What do you think, Heather?
Yeah, definitely. Hey, I wanted to look at the comment Sigvaldason has in the chat when we were talking about the moral gray area. He says, war is always going to be gray as men do the best they can to kill each other. Yeah, it's a good point. One would love to think it's black and white. Only the historians that write the history have that pleasure. And yeah, I mean, obviously, when you're trying to kill the people on the other side, you're not going to have a black and white scenario. And of course, it's the Harvey Cthulhu variety show on Friday. How my mistake.
Yeah, and the Harvey Cthulhu presents on Wednesday, Pop Culture Breakdown, which both you and I are on, and we got an interesting movie, Dead Men Don't Wear Plaid.
Yep.
Steve Martin.
Yeah, that should be a fun one to talk about.
Yeah, and then SP4H talking about the MTV Headbangers Ball Forever. Yeah, Headbangers Ball was a big part of MTV with the variety.
Great show.
Sigvaldason says, by the mid-90s, I stopped watching MTV. Did watch other music channel, which I can't remember, VH1. Yeah.
VH1, yeah. 80s was the peak for MTV, man. The 80s were fantastic.
Yeah. And then 2104 Dogface is talking about Bacon's rebellion in 1676 in Jamestown. Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. Ooh, that's brutal. Yes. And I know 2104 Dogface has some early American history that he and some of his friends are producing. Whenever you can get the links to that, we'd love to listen to it and promote it on the show too. So thank you, 2104 Dogface. And then thanks, Sig Valdison. Great show tonight. Best to you both. And he said, thanks, have VH1. So yeah, if you get a chance, check out that video tomorrow. Please do. It's about 30 minutes. I've got some good slides on there, but some good memories of some songs that I'm sure you would know. They're very popular. It was interesting if you start to think about MTV and what it did for some artists then. So great stuff. So, all right, folks, thank you so much for joining us. Certainly appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, leave comments on the chat, and we will see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.
Buddy, thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye.